family were expecting. They knew that.
So we don't know, but they seem to be suggesting that what was an offer from them was an acceptance that there was collusion and the apology, that this would trump that we're offering.
The apology was never mentioned in the discussions, and it's clear from our submissions that not once did we say we have to have an apology. That's key to us, and one has to ask, what's he apologising for?
Did they accept there was collusion?
Yeah, they accept. He is accepting the findings of Corey and Stevens, but until they have a proper examination in a transparent fashion as to what exactly went on, I think an apology is premature. It's okay to say yes, there was collusion. Who colluded? What was the nature of the collusion? How high did it go? I want to know what he's apologising for. An apology is not something that will satisfy me and my family.
Peter, is not the greatest weakness in a paper review the papers that are not there? I mean, you have a government now that accepts that there was collusion, but one assumes that those areas of military intelligence and special branch intelligence are not going to leave a paper trail of decisions, a paper trail of direction, that they're not going to write collusion down. Is that not the huge weakness?
No, that's not a weakness at all. I think the point is that what has to be done here is, first of all, you look at documents. Second of all, you examine the documents, and you look at those documents to see whether or not there are any other documents referred to in those documents, or any other witnesses referred to in those documents. That's the way it's done. And you're talking about a paper trail. There might very well be a paper trail if you examine the papers. But if you're not given any opportunity to examine the papers, then you won't be able to look for a paper trail. But I think there
what I'm talking about is the documents that are not there. That won't be there. That's the
document. There may be documents that are not there, but you will find, I think, and you possibly find documents that are actually referred to documents that are not there. So then you then ask the question is, why are those documents not there? So you're right. There will be documents that are not there. That happens in all inquiries, that there's so much material, but you're still entitled to examine it. You're entitled to have a challenge to what's been produced to you. If a statement is produced to you and you say, well, that sounds reasonable enough, there's not much challenge in that. But if you see another statement, you say, well, I don't believe that because it conflicts with another statement that I read last week. So there's a problem there. So how's that going to be resolved? That's going to be resolved by calling the maker of the statement to give evidence to explain the discrepancy in the statement. That's how it's done. That's how you get to the truth. You don't get to the truth by sitting in a room somewhere with 9,000 statements or whatever he said. You don't get to the truth by reading 9,000 statements. By the time you get to the end of the road, you've forgotten what you read at the start. You just don't get to the truth. It's not a truth mechanism.
In an inquiry, Peter, who are the main witnesses that you would want to see answer the questions that this family have? I don't mean you to, in a general sense, I'm not asking you to go into the specifics.
There are a whole range of witnesses. We all know, investigative journalists like yourself have commented on this. Investigative journalists have found documents, have produced documents, published documents. There are a whole range of witnesses that are relevant in this case, who have produced statements and who can shed a lot of light on what went on over that period. There are hundreds of people who would be relevant witnesses.
So do you believe that, obviously the campaign was on, you've seen anger even when you were earlier in the week, do you believe there's any chance of changing the mind of this government led by this honourable man?
We are reviewing our options with regard to what action we can take in respect of that. Whether the review goes ahead or not, I think that our campaign will go on. We aren't alone, and we certainly don't represent just the case of my father. It is very symbolic and emblematic of, I think, something that is alleged to have happened here that affected both sides of the community for so long. So am I confident that we will get to where we want to be? Yes, I wouldn't be sitting here otherwise. My family wouldn't continue to fight on if we didn't believe it.
Geraldine, John said, he asked the question, what is it the government is afraid of? What is it you think they're afraid of now that you've sat in the room with David Cameron and had that bad news, as Peter described it, delivered to you? Is it an ugly truth that is too ugly to be revealed, or what is it?
I think that the British government set themselves up as a democratic society and a model of how to behave, and they invade other countries and try and establish a democracy in these other countries and show people how it should be done and the way to move forward. And I don't think they would like what they have done in the past and how they've managed to achieve things in the past to be exposed, because I don't think they did it with very clean hands.
Charlene, can I just ask you, how would you describe the atmosphere in the room that day? I mean, Peter has said that they scampered off out of the room after they delivered their message. Can you just describe to me what it was like?
Well, it started off very well. The Prime Minister, said he was glad we'd come. He was very interested in the case. He wanted closure in the case. He had been a very young man. He was only 45 or something. So this all happened a long time ago when he had nothing to do with the government. So he wouldn't feel that he was treading on anybody's toes, or he wasn't beholden to anybody. He could come into this independently. He admitted that there had been collusion. I think he said it would be important to see how far up the chain of command it went. And I was sitting there thinking, gosh, this is quite optimistic. This is a very optimistic beginning. He was apologising. He said he was sorry. And then he said, so what we're going to do is have a review. And I went, in my head, review? No, not the right word. And it just started spiralling downwards from there. And I said, well, what do you mean a review? And he said, well, we're going to appoint a very eminent man, impeccable credentials. He's going to read all the papers, and then he's going to tell you the truth of what happened. And I said, well, what does the family do? Oh, no, you don't do anything. It'll be very quick. He'll do it in just over a year, so you just wait. And then you'll hear his decision, and then you'll know. And as you can imagine, the atmosphere was very charged. And he just kept repeating how wonderful this was going to be, how great the guy was. And I mean, I have no qualms about Mr. It wouldn't matter who they had appointed. It's the mechanism. And he just, everybody that was with me, Peter, John, my other son, everybody put forward the reasons why this was a bad idea. And we said, look, you did yourself a great service over bloody Sunday. You stood up to the mark, you were counted, and it was great. You're doing yourself a big disservice now. And he just kept repeating that this was what to do. And I was so angry. I just said, I just have to say this meeting is at an end. I really, really cannot listen to any more of this. It's finished.
Did he seem surprised at that reaction?
I didn't even look at him.
I
just had enough.
We said to him in the meeting that we were surprised he was surprised, especially given the context of what our position had been with his officials and his government over the past 12 months, to come in and offer something that hadn't been discussed and then to express surprise at our reaction. We found very difficult to understand.
Why did he express his surprise?
We obviously made the points that we have made since the meeting on Tuesday to Mr. Cameron very directly. He said, look, no, I really do think this is the best way. I think the family should the family should endorse this. He kept trying to sell this. He kept trying to sell the credentials of Mr. De Silva, and really his body language, and more so the Secretary of State's, was laughing. I want to portray this accurately, I suppose Peter can come in, but especially the Secretary of State, whenever he was trying to get into the conversation when we were quite heated, was almost, no, let me explain it to you. You obviously aren't getting this correctly, because once I explain it to you, then you will realise that this is what you want, and we are here to tell you what you want, which I think, on reflection, showed a very high level of arrogance to take a family in who have been campaigning so publicly for 22, 23 years, and then tell us what we want and tell us how we want to get there. And I think that undertone was present in the meeting, and I think that's why the meeting became so charged. And that is why we said to him, look, how can you be surprised by this reaction? You've known this isn't a meeting that has been called in a vacuum. This is a meeting at the end of 11, 12 months of discussions. So that's why we felt particularly insulted that he was surprised by our reaction to the proposal.
He also said, I think, just in relation to that, I think the view, the response was, you're going to get the truth here. What's the problem? You get the truth. It doesn't really matter how you get there. You get the truth. This is a quicker way, we think. This is the most effective way, we think. And what's the problem? We're giving you the truth. This is how we're going to do it. And that was the response, to the criticism of the decision.
Yeah, there was a statement. There was a comment put out that Owen Patterson was supposed to have said that when he met with me, I said that it didn't matter. The method didn't matter. All I was interested in was the truth. Well, I can categorically state that I would never have said that, because the method does matter, and it matters very greatly to us, and it matters to other people. I mean, in the 23 years that I have been campaigning, and as various pieces of information came to light, I mean, I've explained this before, before the word collusion was ever in public use, we used to say, we thought that there was something going on. Then it was proven that there was collusion. And I've had people come up to me saying, my husband or brother or uncle was killed, and I am convinced there was more to it than has ever come out. I think, it's linked up with your case, so would you please continue doing what you're doing? I'm not able to do it. I don't want to do it. I couldn't go out in the public domain the way you do, but if you find out what was going on and expose it, I'll be happy, because then I'll know that what I was thinking was right all these years.
So did Cameron, did he project it in all the contacts you had and exchange documents and stuff? Does it sound like he thought, well, this is a negotiating position by the Finucanes, this is what they would ideally like, but they're likely to settle for something less?
No, he would never have got that. He would never have got that.
We set out our minimum position, and our minimum position was just the international obligation. Our minimum position was to have an open transparent inquiry that's public. That's a minimum position. And we even went as far as to say, right, okay, there's the Inquiries Act that we have objected to, Section 19. That seems to be something that we can work our way around. We've done that already in the Ballymurray case, which was a serious case, a serious investigation, a serious inquiry, and as you know, into the treatment of people in Iraq, leading to a death. And that didn't last long. That was, I think, it was only 2 years, as far as I know, maybe less, on a fairly quick report, which is out now. And that was what we said we would go for. That's a public inquiry under the Inquiries Act 2005. So what's the problem about that? They haven't answered that. They didn't come back to us. This is a big problem I have. They didn't come back and say, that's not a runner. They didn't say that, didn't explain it. And why is it not a runner? It's already been conducted in London. They heard all the witnesses, they produced all the documents. There was a proper public inquiry on the Inquiries Act. Why can't they do the same thing in Pasquias? It's very similar. Allegations against British soldiers in a base in Iraq, ill-treating and hooting and plastic cuffing detainees. One of them died, and the witnesses were all soldiers who were there from the regiment. The regimental commanders were all there and gave evidence about what happened. The documents were produced, and it was conducted fairly quickly. And what's the problem about that? I think we never even got that opportunity to say what's the problem with that. We discussed it, and it was our option, and we produced that as a submission that it was our option. And I still don't know what the problem is with it.
Getting your reaction, has there been any communication with the NIO or Downing Street or anybody since Tuesday?
Yes, well, I spoke to the official who was at the meeting and told him what I thought about the meeting. I also asked him what exactly is being proposed here in relation to Mr. De Silva, and he reinforced his worst fears. I said there would be that Mr. De Silva would not be able to compel witnesses. He might actually ask for one or two people or more to come in to talk to him about statements they made, but the family would have no input into that, and that it would be conducted by Mr. De Silva himself. He thought that possibly the family would be, updated once or twice a week about what his progress is. He might even release some documents to the family. And I simply said, what's the point of that? So seeing documents isn't going to help us. We can't challenge the documents, and we can't see all the documents. We don't expect to see everything in a public inquiry. I have to make that clear. We don't expect to see all everything, because there are some documents that in which the government will make an application that they're sensitive documents and shouldn't be made public, and will succeed with that application. We accept that. We accept that. That's a normal procedure, not just in public inquiries, but in any court proceedings. There are certain documents in which the government or the police can come along and say, these documents exist, they are relevant documents, but they shouldn't be disclosed. And it goes before the judge who makes a decision, and if he decides that they shouldn't be disclosed, then they're not disclosed. That's just the reality of a normal court process. We accept all of it.
Why do you think that the government did this? Why do they think they brought you to Downing Street knowing full well but they were not going to offer you what you want?
I don't know. I just don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. It wasn't the way to do it.
Do you think it's a massive error of judgment or something more sinister?
I think at best, and to give them credit, at best it's a very serious error of judgment. At worst, I think it was a very symbolic rejection of what we have campaigned for, and I think it was a message. At worst, it was a message being sent to us very clearly, and victims in this part of the world, that do not expect to get justice once this government is in power.
So they deliberately misled you, they deliberately told you on the 7th of October, gave you an indication that we're going to get what you wanted, or certainly close to what you wanted, but certainly not a review, which is the other end of the spectrum of what you definitely didn't want. I mean, is that?
The two positions can't be married. To have our position put so clearly for 12 months and get a phone call 5 days before the meeting to say PM's very confident the family will be happy. That can't marry it.
So can I just ask, the redacted Finucane is supposed to be so damning. Is there any possibility that the Silva actually could bring out the truth?
The redacted what? Sorry,
Stevens.
Absolutely. Mr. Silva, did you say?
No, the redacted Stevens inquiry is supposed to be so damning. And
well, first of all, Stevens is not an inquiry. This was an police investigation. Any police investigation is conducted behind closed doors anyway. So that's not an inquiry. And it's been produced and it's been spun by the government as an inquiry, as has Mr. De Silva's so-called inquiry, which isn't an inquiry either. A review of documents is not an inquiry. A police investigation is not an inquiry either. And what Mr. Stevens found,
but it's supposed to contain the truth.
There's a whole lot of material there uncovered by Mr. Stevens. A lot of statements. A lot of them are published, as we know. But that is not necessarily the truth either, because you don't know. There's no way of challenging or examining the material. Even the Stevens material, there's no way of examining.
Just on that, it's worth remembering that I saw Judge Corey, who was in the newspaper today, again being very critical as to what they have done with his report. When Corey conducted his review, he saw papers that Stevens hadn't seen. So I think the fallacy that Stevens is the conclusion, that everything to do with my father's case is contained within Stevens, that is a truth that needs to be challenged. It's quite clearly not the truth. Corey saw documents and had to refer them back to Stevens. So between Corey, between Stevens, I don't think anybody can categorically say, well, this is there you go, there's the file of Finucane, the truth's in there somewhere. Until you challenge, until you have somebody in the witness box saying something that is contradicted by other evidence or implicating somebody else, I don't think anybody can say categorically that the truth of Finucane exists in that pile of papers in that government building.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Come on. I'm so relieved when I haven't been happy and then we can ask you.
You give me your number.